It can't always get twisted. So
The
I definitely think that some of these kind of things that they do are this cat and mouse. Let's stir up this American population. Like, I'm not gonna. It's a different story for a different day. But I legitimately know someone who this past week thought that we were being invaded by aliens. Legitimately was
the
terrified,
yeah,
terrified that we
yep.
were being invaded by aliens because, and so, um, I think that there's a lot of kind of cat and mouse play at this. Like, let's feed them a little. Let's give these people something to talk about. And yeah, we know that their military is tracking our movements, but the people are going to be loud about this thing, and that's the kind of stuff that I um that's kind of how I'm taking it.
Well, in state media in China, so they and I've mentioned this in previous podcasts before. China has so they have the ultimate control over even internet. I mean, they call it they actually call it the Great Internet Wall of China because they have so much control over what is put. I mean, there's a Chinese version of YouTube. There's a Chinese version of YouTube. When you go over there, you can get YouTube. But like for example, I did when I was there one time. I did when we were there. I asked our tour guide when we were in Beijing. I asked him. I said, "So what do you know about the student revolt of 1989 when the communists shut down Tiananmen Square?" We don't talk about that. That's all he said. He said we don't talk about that. And I was kind of okay. So what do you guys talk about? And the amount of, like you said, Facebook. There's no. They have the state social media over there, and they allow what can be talked about on state social media. There is no Twitter. There is no. And we have VPNs over here. You can get these virtual private networks, and their access to Fox, CNN, MSNBC, BBC. All you see is CCN, which is the
You can't get Big Black Cock and try.
no, no. I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure there's Chinese bukkake
Oh, I'm
videos
sure
that are
there's a
out there.
way.
There's Chinese bukkake videos that are out there, Sean. Don't worry. So, but I think that it's those areas still exist. There are still just like and we're going to get into this next week. And just to give you guys a little spoiler for next week, we were going to touch a little bit on this thing that's going on in Ohio, but as we got into we were a little bit late to the show on this one. The media control not only here but everywhere else. The media controls what's being what the narrative is, and we are going to look at this thing in Ohio next week. There is a lot of no info. I'm not even going to say misinformation. There's a lot of media silence that is not happening in this little town in eastern Ohio, and but it's the same thing across the board, and I wanted to go back, with the whole balloon thing and all this stuff. Why I said, why I thought it was, hey, don't look at the man behind the mirror, because I just briefly, we're running out of time, but I just briefly want to say, because the State of the Union address was such a disaster. I think media outlets needed something to divert the attention away from the State of the Union and to say, "Oh, look at this, we're being invaded." Like you said, Sean, we're you get the people with the tinfoil hat saying, we're being invaded by aliens." The State of the Union was the biggest poo show that I have. It to me was a disaster. For Joe being Joe, of course. I mean, when he's got the cards right there in front of him, he still struggles with it. But the thing that angered me the most about the State of the Union was the heckling, literally heckling of a president, of a sitting president. And this is only that, I look back when Obama gave his last State of the Union address. There was a guy, I forgot where he was from, but he got up and he said, Obama had made some statement. He said, and this guy got up and said, "You're a liar." And that guy was immediately called on the carpet. But during this year's State of the Union address, Marjorie Taylor Greene, which whatever that fur thing was that she had wrapped around her head, it made her look like she was, yeah, exactly. There you go. Okay, do the tomahawk chop. But she was, she was constantly heckling, and so then you've got the Speaker of the House. Why is his name escaping me right now?
McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy. So he's up there and he's just, and constant heckling and all of this, and
Well, he was doing some stuff too.
Oh,
If you look
yeah.
in the
Oh.
back, if I were to make a statement and he's in the back, she could say, "That's not true. That's not
no,
true."
no.
Like,
Of course, Joe was also saying that the Republicans want to phase out Medicaid, and Medicare.
yeah,
and it's like,
he was bullshitting, making
Yeah.
up some stuff for sure.
But here's my point is this: did I vote for Joe Biden? Nope. Is he my president? Yes. I don't necessarily have to respect Joe Biden as a person, but I have respect for the office of the
Respect
president.
the rank, not the man.
Yeah, you have respect. You respect. Did I vote for Donald Trump? Did I like? No way did I say I like Donald Trump. But I still respected the office. I respected it when Obama was in there. Did I vote for that guy? No, I haven't By the way, I haven't voted for a winning president since George W. Bush. I've given up trying. But to be in that arena when you're there gathered before both houses of Congress, you have guests up in the gallery, foreign dignitaries, you have the parents of that young man who was slain by those 5 cops. You have and all of this, and you have the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States, which, by the way, Joe Biden could not pronounce her name, so he just said, "We welcome the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States," and he couldn't say her name, which I thought was totally hilarious. But it was so embarrassing for us to the rest of the world to show this. And I usually show it to you guys know, in government class, I always show the State of the Union address. This was the first time in my 25 years of teaching, no lie, first time in my 25 years of teaching, I did not show the State of the Union address to the class. Because
it was a shit show.
Yeah. It was an embarrassment. There were
Both sides.
There were no talking points. There were no good, there were no good talking points. There were no good anything. And then, even you're starting to see the rumble between the Republican Party at the State of the Union. You saw Mitt Romney walking up to that guy from New York, George. It's not Is it Santos? Whatever, the guy the guy who's lied about everything. I
think it is George Santos.
I loved it. You could read Mitt Romney's lips as plain as day. You shouldn't even be here. He said you shouldn't be here. Just calls from and you're starting to see this. George Santos. Okay, so you're seeing this rift in the Republican Party, and I'm sticking with my prediction that if Donald Trump doesn't get the nomination, we're going to see a split. It's just I don't want to say that America is waning in popularity, and I still believe we live in a very great country, and I believe in everything that America, as the values that it stands for, as put in the Constitution, but we're a long way from that now. So.
Agreed. I could go on for like 20 minutes on what I thought the State of the Union.
Go ahead.
I'll be quick. I just remember thinking when I was watching this, like, this is all a show. I had no confidence leaving that speech. I felt like I was watching a play. And I remember I watched the State of the Union when Obama was president. Um, and I think I even remember one of the Trump ones I watched. I never seen anything like what I saw with the Biden one. And it wasn't just Biden. I mean, it was everything from the Republicans bickering, the facial expressions, the unprofessionalism of both sides, and then just the speech itself. I mean, like you said, there was no good talking points. I didn't feel like it united anything. If anything, it was pointing fingers and shots fired left and right. Guy was mumbling all over the place, like always. It just, I didn't leave with any confidence whatsoever of American. No real pride from it. I didn't feel like I got a good state of the union and where we are as a country from it. And the biggest thing, yeah, I was just, I left that thinking, I don't know what I just watched. That was a show.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a drama. I don't
Yeah.
know what that was.
Sean, what were your thoughts?
You know, I still need to go back and do another deep dive of it and just kind of sit and listen. Like
It's hard to.
it is hard. Even the 20-ish minutes of it that I've kind of listened to, it was tough. And we'll kind of talk about it a little bit more probably next week. But like we have these, they're almost caricatures of what a representative should be at this point. Again, both sides. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of those like dangerous.
Very.
And again, we'll hit on this more next week because I know we're pretty much out of time here. But like, this is the same woman that today went on a rant about how Republican states need to separate themselves from the United States of America.
Oh God, you're kidding me.
I'm not.
God.
You can go to her. You can quite literally go to her Twitter, and
Yeah, he
actually,
made
I've
some
got a
stupid
second,
statement
so-
about it today.
yeah, went on about how
They need
yeah,
like
red
the
states-
divorce. They need the
Yeah,
divorce.
red states
Yeah.
need to divorce from this country. Oh gosh, here let me.
That's terrible.
Yes, we need a national divorce. We need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government. Everyone I talk to says this. From the sick and disgusting woke culture issues shoved down our throats to Democrats' treacherous American last policies, we are done. And John Stewart with the comment on top that made me laugh the most. But we get to keep the name, right?
Oh my gosh.
He is very missed.
Oh
He is very missed.
yeah. God.
But no, we'll deep dive into that more next week, and we'll actually put together and hopefully maybe with some actual answers as to what's kind of going on in Ohio and why there
Yeah,
hasn't really been.
we were going to do some
much
research.
talk.
Yeah, hopefully, I'm sure more information will come out on everything
Yeah.
by then, and we
Yeah.
can touch. Yeah.
Gentlemen, this was a great episode.
Yes,
I actually
yes,
had a ton of fun. It's always good to kind of shoot from the hip, and as we've kind of taken the time off. But it is crazy because we're. It's my Facebook memories told me that we're getting very close to year 2, and one thing that kind of before we get off here that I want to mention, one really cool thing about our show is, and what I get excited about is any of these big podcasts. So 2 of the big ones that I really listen to a lot are obviously Joe Rogan podcast, big fan of, but I also listen to one that's called Last Podcast on the Left, which is a true crime podcast. What's very interesting is I've listened to them at the very beginning, and they were not very good. Okay, were not very good, and it took them time to get to where they are now. Now, obviously, everyone knows who Joe Rogan is, and Last Podcast on the Left does over 50,000 on Patreon each month, so they're a very successful podcast. But now we are getting to the block where in the next couple of months we are going to be able to make that kind of transition as they did into really growing as a podcast, into really doing some things differently for our listeners. And so I'm really excited. Right now it's February. I think towards the end of spring and early summer, we're going to give you guys some great new content to be excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Some great things are going to happen here, and stick with us, be patient. But one of the big things is everyone and their dog talks about how there's a billion podcasts. I remember some asshole that we've invited several times to be on this podcast continue to bitch about how, oh, there's
Yep.
too many podcasts, too many podcasts, too many podcasts. But this particular podcast falls in a very, 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 very small percentile of continuing the show.
Yep.
And this is where a lot of podcasts that have been around, we are now getting into the point where we are getting ready for growth and getting ready to do things a bit differently and to provide you guys with excellent content and hopefully continue to see this thing take off. So to our listeners, thanks again for giving us the week. It was much needed.
Yep.
This episode was a ton of fun.
Yep.
And next week, hopefully we can get back to our grassroots and give you guys some good things. Gentlemen, as always, it was great to see you. And unless you two have anything, that is all for me on the Voice of Reason. So we will talk to you guys next week.
Mm-hmm.